Story number two, Oscar Musibay, we're going to go to you. We heard a lot during COVID that people from New York, people from California were all moving to Florida. It was a state where you didn't have to wear a mask. Spring break crowds came here in record numbers. The supply chain became pronounced. There's all this talk about how South Florida is really booming and how this was the place to be. And as a result, real estate prices are going up. So that's the context, Oscar. Let me read you the headline and the first couple graphs from the story from Axios. Here we go. Headline: Miami-Dade's population dropped slightly while Florida's grew. First couple graphs, Florida population has been growing, but Miami-Dade County shrank by nearly 1% between 2020 and 2022, according to the U.S. Census Bureau data. What happened? Between 2020 and 2022, county's population dropped by almost 22,000 people. Yes, but Miami-Dade was just one of 9 Florida counties that lost people. The rest gained. And the biggest drop by percentages happened in Lafayette County, which lost 5.2% of its population during the times, or 428 people. So that's kind of an outlier. Meanwhile, the fastest growing county in Florida was Sumter County, where part of the Villages is located. Villages is that community everybody sort of knows about. It's kind of a retiree utopia. It jumped more than 11%. Zoom in, South Florida as a whole still grew, and Broward County population rose by 0.2%, and in Palm Beach County grew by 1.6%. So, Oscar, help us square this. How is Miami booming? How are prices going up if the population actually decreased?
So I think there's a few things that are happening here that are important to consider. And part of it is data that you were pointing to in the last story, because there's still record sales going on. And even if prices shrink, they're still higher than they were 2 years ago. So the difference between what the asking price was versus sale price is still significant, right? The sale price is still significant, even if they dropped a little bit from their asking price. So I think that what's important here is to understand that, yes, there is a significant migration of people from all parts of the country into Miami, specifically the Northeast. And I know because I see it on the road all the time. License plates from everywhere, Michigan, Pennsylvania, everywhere, right? New York. And that is continuing. And the reason it's continuing is because our property values are high to us, but to them, they're at a discount based on where they live, right? So there's a lot of people that are interested in coming here. Now, the census data indicates that we've shrunk. And what's happening at the same time is that people are moving north to get better pricing on housing and maybe better schools, maybe, better amenities, places that are not overdeveloped where traffic is less. So that's why you're seeing that Broward and Palm Beach are seeing increases while we're seeing decreases. So it may be that also the fact that businesses are now asking their employees, or maybe telling their employees that they have to come into the offices, is affecting our population in Miami-Dade. So everybody moved here thinking, oh man, this virtual office is going to be forever. And I moved from wherever I was, New York or California or whatever, moved here thinking I would be able to have my home office forever. And now Apple and everybody else is saying, guess what? You're going to have to come into the office. So that's probably part of what's affecting this out migration. And regardless of that, there's still enough new housing being built. And that's because of demand. Peter, I know that you keep track of this. What is the amount of inventory that's in the market right now? Is it 6 months, 9 months? How much do we have?
Ballpark in the Tri-County, South Florida area, I'd say it's equilibrium, which is roughly 6 months, give or take, depending on which market you're looking at. However, I will tell you on the data side, if you look at transactions and how long they took in 2022 versus how long they're taking now, right now, places are on the market twice as long as what a transaction took a year ago. So you are seeing a dramatic slowdown in terms of the sales pace.
But what I'm hearing still anecdotally is that there's still a lot of cash on the table that people are coming in and outbidding each other. And maybe it's certain neighborhoods that are being affected more than others, where, locals who are looking to move up are facing this kind of situation, and they still have to outbid the other person to be able to close on the house, to sign the contract. So it feels like there's a lot of nuance in here that we're exactly picking up on, that the data isn't reflecting clearly, because anecdotally, I'm hearing that there's still a lot of demand for quality housing in this market.
Interesting, interesting. Oscar, I won't ask you to say this, but I'm going to say, is it, and this is rhetorical, is it possible that this is a snow job by the real estate industry to make people think there's less supply and there's less product out there, therefore to justify the pricing versus what the actual Census Bureau data is suggesting? So I'm not going to ask you to answer that because you do work on the public relations side. Just throwing the concept out there that possibly some of the marketing is much better than maybe some of the reality on the
You're
ground.
saying that the
So,
numbers are reflecting the state of the market, meaning that there is a
well,
drought.
well, well,
That's what you're saying.
well, what I'm saying, many people think that the real estate data, um, it all revolves around the MLS. The MLS, the multiple listing service, is simply a database for people who have a real estate license. They pay $1,000. They join a club called the Realtor Association. Then they put all this information in this database. Zillow taps into it. Others tap into it. Doesn't mean it's all the transactions that are out there. It's those transactions where commissions being offered. So a lot of times there is what's called shadow inventory. There's other stuff going on that never actually makes it in the MLS because nobody wants to pay that particular commission. So I don't see how the Census Bureau data can suggest the community has decreased, but yet the prices are going up, other than the possibility that people are buying second homes or properties for Airbnb or home sharing type of programs. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense, because supposedly there's this big housing shortage. So is a corporation buying it? Is a second home buyer purchasing it? Who's consuming all this? And are they going to have the wherewithal to ride through higher prices, which means higher property taxes as well as a higher insurance bill? So
Let me ask you a question.
that's something we can.
Is one of the
Please.
stories you sent us, Blackstone creating a new fund, is that one of those
Yep.
stories?
That is one of our
And
stories.
who was the person who was responsible for that story? Okay.
I am.
So maybe we go into that, because maybe, like you said, maybe it is a fund. I mean, that fund is bigger than the last one that Blackstone. So maybe we go into that next, because it leads right
Okay.
into it.
Yep. Well, here's the thing though. We're going to pick that up in the second half. That's going to be sort of what we focus on in the second half. But that's great foreshadowing for what we're doing. So we'll leave that up there. If anybody has a comment, send an email to inquiry@CondoVultures.com. We'll read it on the air. INQUIRY@CondoVultures.com. Do you think that maybe the real estate industry is hoodwinking buyers, or is it second home buyers who are buying this product, even though the population is decreasing? Or do you think it's like Oscar's saying, where there's a lot of stuff that's sort of going on and it's still a rah, bullish type of atmosphere? So send us an email and we'll discuss it.
I'm not saying that it's rah, rah, rah. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
Okay. All right.
is that it may be in pockets, so that there's still a lot of demand in certain pockets. Like maybe it's below 25 million or below 10 million or below 5 million, but higher than 500,000, where there's a lot of activity because there are a lot of, I'm just thinking out loud,
No.
right? There are a lot of professionals who are relocating here and they make a lot of money. They're in tech or whatever it is. We're seeing these stories. I have no idea. What I'm suggesting is we're seeing a lot of stories about people relocating here. Some of them are financial CEOs, some of them are tech CEOs. And the question is, where are they living and how are they impacting the real estate market? And how does that impact everything else? Now, we know for a fact that in the boom times, the numbers aren't reflective of the real market. And the reason is because condominium sellers are, implementing their friends and family list, which sells out a building before it's even on the market. So is that an accurate representation of the market? Does that not fuel faster sales in other buildings? Of course. So the data is saying one thing. Anecdotally, we're hearing something else. And the last time I was on here, which is, I don't know, 3 months ago, there was a story about the number of brokers shrinking, right? So clearly something
Yes.
is happening. Something is happening that the market is changing. And the question is, can we make a blanket statement that says the market is slowing down, or is it slowing down in certain parts? Because it may be that some people have given up on buying because it's too expensive. So they're focusing on renting. So does that mean that there's less demand for houses? Maybe, but only at a certain level. Maybe it's from 500,000 and below, right?
Sure.
I don't know.
But I will say the other side of the trade is, does it mean there's widespread speculation because the number of sales has gone up while the number of people has gone down? So that would, especially if an investor has an adjustable rate mortgage, when they were buying in interest rates, the federal funds rate was 0 and now it's 5 and probably pushing north of 5. What kind of adjustment and what kind of, religious moment are these people going to have once the interest rate starts to be reflected in what their mortgages are? So anyways, let's go ahead. Let's move on to our next story. And this is something that I would encourage the audience to go ahead and send an email, inquiry@CondoVultures.com. We'll pick it up. We want to hear from you. Am I full of shit? Is Oscar full of shit?
What?
What is the reality? That's what this conversation is all about.
That's right. That's right.
Cutting through the fluff.
Yeah.